activists spreading a pro-life message through the streets of New York. I'm Emily Druby, and that story is ahead.
Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio rededicates a Brooklyn church with a long history, 150 years in Williamsburg. I'm Tim Harfman, and that story is coming up.
It's the Feast of the Annunciation, and Pope Francis made a special pilgrimage to sign a letter dedicated to the world's youth. Plus, the investigation by Special Counsel Robert Mueller is over, but the political battles are just beginning. The news starts right now. Calling attention to the evils of abortion. Young people from across the city are making their voices heard in the abortion capital of America. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. The International Gift of Life Walk, attracting hundreds of people for one cause, protecting the lives of the unborn. Today they prayed, marched, and inspired others to speak out against abortion expansion laws taking lives across the country. Currents News' Emily Druby is in Foley Square, where the peaceful protest kicked off. Emily.
Liz, the rallying cries to protect the unborn started here in Foley Square and continued through the heart of downtown Manhattan, leading that march a survivor of abortion.
God had another plan, didn't he? Amen.
Melissa Oden defied the odds.
I was actually aborted and I survived.
41 years ago, doctors performed a failed saline infusion abortion on her birth mother.
They believed that when I was delivered in the final step of the abortion procedure that it had been successful, but I was accidentally born alive.
Oden lived, and now she dedicates her life to fighting for those who might never have a chance at life.
Let's do something to address the root causes that lead women to abortion.
Oden and hundreds of other pro-life activists, including many Knights of Columbus and members of the Diocese of Brooklyn, gathered in downtown Manhattan Monday for the annual International Gift of Life Walk, a powerful march focused on preserving life from conception to natural death. New York has long been known as the abortion capital of America. In fact, Abort 73, a Christian organization that collects data on abortions, estimates that 239 children are killed every single day in the state. Pro-life activists heartbroken by the high rates and by new state laws that severely limit restrictions on abortions. Activists like Catherine Donahoe now doing everything possible to push back. Donahoe says events like this walk send a strong message.
To let people know that all of New York doesn't follow suit with our mayor and our governor, who signed into Bill RHA that allows abortion up until the day of the baby's birthday. Okay, so now we're praying for to save the babies.
Event organizer Dawn Eskew adding the walk is a way to empower those with anti-abortion views who might be afraid to speak out.
This is one way to help encourage New Yorkers. You need to speak. If you can't speak about pro-life issues in the public or try to educate people in the public, we will never advance.
Askew says they planned the walk for early Monday morning, knowing people would be on their way to work, hoping to spread their message with as many as possible. In downtown Manhattan, Emily Druby, Currents News. Back to you, Liz.
Emily, you mentioned the Reproductive Health Act. First, let's remind our viewers that this law passed earlier this year allows for late-term abortions. What do people at the walk have to say about the newly signed bill?
Liz, it's been almost 2 months, but people are saddened and they're angry over this bill. People that we talked to here said they feel like they have to speak out against abortion now more than ever because of it. Liz?
All right, Emily, thank you so much for that report. Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio is also mobilizing support for the lives of the unborn. The Brooklyn Diocese is joining the international 40 Days for Life campaign during Lent. The bishop's action is in response to New York's abortion law, legislation that removes restrictions on the deadly procedure even in the third trimester. Bishop DiMarzio is encouraging prayer, fasting, and education. The Brooklyn Diocese has published resource materials relating to the 40 Days for Life online online, go to dioceseofbrooklyn.org and click on the Marriage and Family tab. Still ahead, I'll talk to Kathleen Gallagher, the Director of Pro-Life Activities for the New York State Catholic Conference, about how more Americans are choosing to protect life following the passage of the Reproductive Health Act. Pope Francis has accepted the resignation of one of Chile's top cardinals. Ricardo Isati, the former Archbishop of Santiago, Chile's most important archdiocese, is accused of covering up sexual abuse. Isati had submitted his resignation 2 years ago, though he denied the allegations and defended his record. And at that time, the Holy Father did not accept it. And Pope Francis is making history once again. The Holy Father traveled to a major Italian pilgrimage site dedicated to the Virgin Mary to sign a much anticipated new document addressing today's youth. Melissa Butts has more from the Vatican.
Today, the Pope made history, signing the first ever post-synodal exhortation on an address to young people. 5 months after the final document was produced at the Synod of Bishops on Young People, the Faith and Vocational Discernment, Pope Francis traveled by helicopter to the shrine of Loreto to sign his resulting magisterial document entitled Christ Lives. On the Feast of the Annunciation, the Pope wanted to especially entrust the document to the Blessed Mother. Thus, he celebrated Mass at the Holy House, where tradition says Mary was born, grew up, and the angel Gabriel visited her. The Pope said this new apostolic exhortation is an invitation for all youth to seek out their vocation. He explained it can be done in 3 steps: stopping to listen, personally discerning what has been heard, and making a decision to act.
Occorre essere pronti e disponibili, ascoltare ed accogliere la voce di Dio, il suo disegno sulla nostra vita personale e sociale non si percepisce rimanendo in superficie, ma scendendo a un livello più profondo, dove agiscono le forze morali e spirituali.
Pope Francis was only in Loreto for 6 hours, but he greeted many of the sick and even a group of deaf people. Before returning to Rome, he ate lunch with the bishops from the region. Christ Lives is the Pope's 6th document. It will serve as a map, helping the global church implement and follow up on the ideas created during the Synod. While the full text has not yet been released, the Vatican says it will be presented during a press conference on April 2nd. Yet the Synod will not end there. We're also expecting some other initiatives coming in June, when some Synod participants will return to Rome to touch base on how the ideas from the Synod are being carried out in their respective countries. At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News. Back to you in New York, Liz.
Thank you, Melissa. The Holy Father is calling on all Catholics to remember those killed for Christ.
Ricordare questo calvario contemporaneo di fratelli e sorelle perseguitati o uccisi a motivo della loro fede in Gesù.
During his Sunday Angelus on the Day of Missionary Martyrs, Pope Francis prayed for the 40 missionaries who were killed living out their faith last year. That's nearly double the lives lost last year. According to Fides News Agency, 35 of those missionaries were priests, 1 was a seminarian, and 4 were lay people. Caught on camera, a priest attacked with a knife in the middle of a morning service in Montreal. Father Claude Grew was celebrating Mass via live stream on Friday when a man in a white baseball cap approached the altar and stabbed him. Parishioners came to the priest's rescue and detained the suspect until police arrived. Father Grew was rushed to the hospital and has since been released.
I want to say a great word of thanks for all the people who have expressed their concern for me. There were so many people who helped me to pass through this moment, and now my health is fine. I'll take a little rest and I will be back to work when my rest is taken.
Now, police say they've known of the 26-year-old assailant for quite some time. He was charged with attempted murder and assault. Authorities are not considering it a terror attack. Reactions pouring in from both sides of the aisle after Attorney General William Barr briefed Congress this past weekend on the final Robert Mueller report. Now, though the investigation is over, many questions still remain. Kristen Holmes has the latest from Washington.
President Trump speaking out about the Robert Mueller report.
They lied to Congress. Many of them, you know who they are. They've done so many evil things. I will tell you, I love this country. I love this country as much as I can love anything, my family, my country, my God. But what they did, it was a false narrative. It was a terrible thing. We can never let this happen to another president again.
And after nearly 2 years attacking the special counsel investigation, changing his tune.
Yes.
Now, Republicans say the report lifts the cloud of conspiracy hanging over the Trump administration.
The American system has prevailed.
While Democrats push for more answers.
We need to see the full report to really understand the evidence that was collected.
Attorney General Bill Barr sent a letter to Congress summarizing the findings, writing, "The special counsel's investigation did not find that the Trump campaign or anyone associated with it conspired or coordinated with Russia in its efforts to influence the 2016 U.S. presidential election." But the letter does not fully exonerate President Trump from obstructing justice. Democrats pouncing.
It's very important that Mueller did not exonerate the president on obstruction of justice. In fact, after 2 years of investigation, Mueller said he couldn't make a determination, and it's highly concerning.
In Washington, Kristen Holmes, Currents News.
Airplane manufacturer Boeing remains under fire following 2 fatal crashes within 5 months that killed more than 300 people. But now the company says it's testing new software. While more than 370 planes are still grounded worldwide, Boeing says new software patches for these 737 MAX planes could solve the issues that may have contributed to the fatal crashes. Until then, many airlines are warning of even more flight cancellations as they test the new approach.
They just happened in a span of 5 months, similar flight pattern. They both happened, the accident happened during takeoff, and there are a lot of similarities. We'll have to wait and see the correction that is being worked out by Boeing, and we'll have to convince ourselves before we put these airplanes back to air.
Pilots and trainers met with Boeing officials over the weekend to test the proposed software. So far, the causes of both the Lion Air and Ethiopian Airlines crashes have not yet been determined. There's a lot more news headed your way. A celebration of renewal just in time for the Feast of the Annunciation as hundreds gather to witness the long-awaited rededication of a Brooklyn church. And in the aftermath of the Reproductive Health Act, I discuss how to move the country toward a culture of life with Kathy Gallagher of the New York State Catholic Conference. Plus, the Georgia Senate passed a controversial heartbeat abortion bill, but will the House back the legislation? A celebration of renewal at the Church of the Annunciation in Williamsburg. Built by German-speaking Brooklynites in 1863, the almost 150-year-old parish was bursting with new life on Sunday, hundreds filling the pews to celebrate the church's much-needed renovation. Currents News' Tim Harfman was there.
A celebration in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, as Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio rededicated the Church of the Annunciation of the Blessed Virgin Mary. The church receiving new life after a year-long renovation.
Today's a very exciting day because there's a church that probably should have been closed because it was such in bad repair. So it's a great joy to see a church being put back into service that can be very functional.
Hundreds of worshipers filled the pews and the lobby of the nearly 150-year-old church. Sunday's rededication included Bishop DiMarzio sprinkling the congregation with holy water, a reminder of their baptism. And the bishop anointing the altar with sacred chrism, the same oil used during the sacrament of confirmation. Bishop DiMarzio also installed Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello as the church's new pastor. Monsignor oversaw the entire restoration of the church.
I feel like a kid first time in Disney World. I mean, I renovated a few churches and I renovated, some parishes, but this truly is a gem. This is probably one of my greatest accomplishments.
Monsignor said a key to the church's rebirth has been the Lithuanian Catholic community. Annunciation of the Blessed Virgin Mary is believed to be the only church in the 5 boroughs with a weekly Lithuanian Mass.
They're ecstatic because they were always living in the fear that the church would close and they would have nowhere to go and they would lose their home.
Now the parishioners are looking forward to a bright future.
It's so exciting. We've been worshiping here since 1914, and to see the wonderful renovation of the church, it just ensures that we're going to be here for decades to come.
Everybody invited now, and everybody feel, that God is here. Then we invited to new home, to new church. We like it a lot.
The celebration was accompanied by the announcement that Annunciation of the Blessed Virgin Mary Parish will merge with Our Lady of Mount Carmel, located blocks away. Monsignor Gigantiello also serves as pastor of that parish.
My goal is to make it one community.
In Williamsburg, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
This Lenten season, Catholics are calling for 40 days of life. And though New York is still reeling from the passing of the Reproductive Health Act, studies show more Americans are choosing to protect life. And here to talk more about the fight for the unborn is Kathleen Gallagher, Director of Pro-Life Activities for the New York State Catholic Conference. Kathy, thank you so much for being with us, as always.
Thank you.
Since the passing of the Reproductive Health Act, people on both sides of this issue have weighed in, some with very, very strong opinions. Now, the good news here for us is this new extreme abortion bill has actually opened up a dialogue, but has it brought more awareness to the evils of abortion?
Well, from where I sit, we are seeing an awakening of pro-life people, especially young people. First of all, they're heartbroken about this new law. They have real grief over it, but they're also angered and they want to do something about it. So we've seen this pro-life passion and fervor get stirred up, which is really a good thing because it's an opportunity to educate people about what's really going on. Also, I'm hearing from pro-choice people on the other side of this debate who are saying, you know what? I'm okay with abortion in the first trimester, but you're talking about third trimester babies who are burping and hiccuping and sucking their thumbs. I'm not okay with that.
Kathy, New York has been called the abortion capital of the world. I have some statistics that I want to just run past you. According to the CDC in 2015, 28.2% of pregnancies in New York ended in abortion. That is over 93,000 abortions performed. Your reaction to those numbers, especially now that we have the Reproductive Health Act in existence?
New York State does rank #1 in the entire country in terms of our abortion rate. It's very, very sad and tragic. And the really sad part is I'm afraid that the passage of the Reproductive Health Act is just going to increase those numbers. We have been seeing the numbers trend downward, both nationally and in New York State over the past decade. But I'm afraid now we've given the green light to late-term abortionists in neighboring states, like Pennsylvania, for example, which have a real hard line and say no abortions after 24 weeks. I'm afraid we're inviting those abortionists now into New York State saying, our state is progressive and we've got this late-term abortion law. Come on in and open up your trade. I also worry about abortion providers, because now not only doctors are allowed to perform late-term abortions, but also physician assistants, nurse practitioners, midwives. I worry about what's going to happen to them. Abortion can have a traumatic impact not only on the woman and her unborn child, but on the abortion providers themselves.
Kathy, in the time we have left, let's address those concerns. Let's be proactive. How do we move our country to a culture of life?
There's so many things people can be doing right now to educate. Sign the petition to repeal the late-term abortion law. It's at NewYorkersForLife.org. Write to your state assembly person and your state senator and don't let them off the hook if they voted for this. We have to remember this come election day in 2020. The people in Albany are supposed to be representing us, so we have to hold them accountable. We also have to educate with letters to the editors and speaking out whenever we can to our friends, to our neighbors, on the radio, anywhere we can. Talk about this and how we need to protect human life. But ultimately, we really are going to change the culture one pregnancy at a time. So we have to be promoting our support services, our life-affirming pregnancy care services, and post-abortion healing services for women who are faced with an unplanned pregnancy.
Kathy Gallagher, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Liz.
As abortion expanding bills are working to loosen restrictions across the country, some states are standing up for the unborn, currently considering or having passed heartbeat bills. These bills prohibit an abortion after a fetal heartbeat is detected, and that can be as early as 6 weeks after conception. States that have pushed for the heartbeat bill include Florida, Maryland, Minnesota, Mississippi, Iowa, Ohio, South Carolina, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Georgia. But just as often as these bills get introduced, they get shut down. So far, not one state has managed to put a heartbeat bill into lasting practice. The Georgia Senate is the latest to approve their own version of a heartbeat bill. Now that vote is moving back to the House. If approved by the House, the bill would become one of the strictest abortion laws in the country.
Many of the abortions done today are done so as a form of birth control and convenience.
Many lined up outside the Senate gallery hours before lawmakers began the debate. Pro-choice supporters wearing costumes from the TV show A Handmaid's Tale, while pro-life supporters wore white and held up signs. Inside the Senate chamber, Republicans and Democrats discussed the controversial bill that would ban abortions at the first sign of a heartbeat. Under current Georgia law, that would be about 6 weeks instead of the current 20 weeks. Democrat Gloria Butler argued the bill would take away a woman's constitutional rights.
We've seen the chipping away at our constitutional rights over and over of our own bodies. And now, here we go again.
Republican Renee Unterman, who sponsored the bill in the Senate, says the proposal makes unborn children legal citizens of Georgia and gives them rights while still in the womb.
The bill defines that a natural person is any human being, including an unborn child.
Atlanta Democrat Nikema Williams held that the abortion issue shouldn't be a partisan one.
It's not just Democrats. It's not just people that live in Atlanta. Those are people that all of you know.
If the bill is approved by Georgia State House, Governor Bryant Kemp is expected to sign it. The measure is ultimately an effort to push the issue to the Supreme Court to challenge Roe v. Wade. Still to come on Currents News, from the ashes of Hiroshima's atomic bomb, the flame of peace is presented to Pope Francis with a special request. And they made quite a splash. Members of the DeSales Media Group family take the polar plunge for a really great cause. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. A candle carried all the way from Hiroshima, Japan, made it to the Vatican over the weekend, along with a special request for Pope Francis.
Holy Father, please, will you blow out this flame so there will never again be another Nagasaki, so there will never again be another Hiroshima.
The candle was taken from the embers of the atomic bomb that destroyed Hiroshima in 1945. A second candle still burns at the site of the blast, and it will continue burning until the destruction of all nuclear weapons. A bunch of Catholics took the plunge this weekend. A polar plunge. Members of DeSales Media Group's Net TV's parent company took part in the 5th annual freeze at Rockaway Beach, with water temperatures teetering just above that freezing mark. The funds raised all went to sponsor local Special Olympic athletes, and our colleagues alone raised over $1,500 for the cause. I always say I have the best colleagues ever. That is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.